Dice Company contains fantasy violence, mature themes, and unapologetic bickering. No feelings were hurt in the making of it, but listener discretion is advised. Dice Company will always be free, but it's not free to make. Please consider supporting us on Patreon or Apple Podcasts and get access to our weekly roundtable show Extra Roll. Just follow any of the links in the show notes for this chapter.
You hear the padding of metal feet, and from around the corner, an enormous metal dog appears and looks directly towards you. It holds its position, its red crystal eyes glowing in the darkness. Following it, ringing a small bell, is a gnome with bubblegum pink hair. She is leaning her hands on a rag, her eyes fixed on the three of you. Well, hello there, Mustang. It's been a while.
Bugger, says Vander under his breath. Ah! Gearhead, says Vander, taking a shuffling step forward and trying to drop that pretense of being in combat. You know, you hold yourself in a certain way. I've gone to as passive a stance as I possibly can. Flintlock now held lazily at my side.
How truly great it is to see you in Shale. I had no idea you were here.
Oh, I see you've made yourself busy since arriving. Less than 24 hours and you've already knocked out poor Allo there. And dare I ask where Hugo is?
I'm afraid the name Hugo doesn't ring a bell. Not even the little one in your hand.
Of course. You're nothing if not consistent. When was the last time I saw you? Was it Slateholm and the Steamrunner?
So many adventures together, Gearhead. Who's to say when the last time our veritably interesting lives intertwined in such a way?
Of course. I mean, I would fill you in on what I've been up to, but you did meet poor Tiaram, didn't you, in Mama Strange's resort?
I'm afraid I don't recall such busy times of late, Gearhead. Though, if you remember such a meeting, then perhaps one took place? What is your recollection?
He was my ticket, Mustang. What a waste.
I see. Would it be wrong of me to ask whether you have mastered that inner rage since that unfortunate event? Or do you still harbor some ill will?
Says Vander. One hand behind Vander's back is making the calmly now sign, as if we're kind of dealing with, the very gates of hell.
Oh, Mustang, I can't tell you how angry I was. All that rage seething through me. I spent so long thinking about how exactly I would exact my revenge upon you. What terrible things I'd do, just to make myself feel a bit better.
That is most perturbing, Gearhead. I used to marvel at the exquisite control you exercised over that little temper of yours.
Vander's hand now making the frantic, everybody stay calm motion behind his back.
Before we engage in strenuous negotiations, perhaps I can interest you in a peace offering. Maybe something to rekindle our profitable relationship.
Oh, Mustang, I did always like it when you begged. But for old time's sake, why don't we see exactly how far you're willing to go to make this right?
Vander's eye flicks back and forth as his brain searches for some trade to give Gearhead. And kind of half subconsciously, he just raises the flintlock.
I know that you have been interested in my little contraption for many years now. Does it still interest you?
Oh, I'd have to say that was surprising. Can I hold it?
Better than taking it from my cold, dead fingers,
says Vander again under his breath.
Why, certainly, Gearhead. What is a little trust between best friends?
And calmly hands it over to Gearhead.
So Seeksorrow is going backwards down the alleyway And Petron's trying to make eye contact with Seeksorrow to see if he understands what's happening. To Petron's eyes, this is a very small person, a gnome, and Vander seems to be really terrified, and Petron can't quite understand why. It seems to be an incredibly tense atmosphere. It doesn't seem quite as frightening as Vander seems to be making out.
Seeksorrow mutters to Petron, "I think if Vander's scared, we should all be scared."
Petron's holding his staff. Just little scratches a little mark on the ground. He's just cast Shillelagh, just in case.
Almost imperceptibly, the staff glows very slightly with gold, but Gearhead does not notice, only has eyes for the flintlock. Ooh, Mustang. This does feel amazing. And I just hold it up, and she points it directly at you, Vander. And if I just pull this little trigger here, it'll go bang.
That is correct, Gearhead. The model has been upgraded since you last saw it.
Vander says, gently pressing the barrel to one side of his head to say,
If you'll admire the fine carvery down the left and right of the barrel, you will see that it has gained considerable force since you last saw it in action.
She pulls down her goggles and begins to turn the flintlock over in her hand. This is absolutely incredible. And you would give this to me, and all I'd have to do is let go of my hate.
I would prefer I give you the idea, Gearhead, and rather than let go of your hate, rather I would ask that you simply redirect it.
Oh, Mustang, speak plainly.
Well, Gearhead, I have here in my robes,
and Vander does some fumbling. You hear various strange metallic sounds of very improbable objects being moved, and he produces a blueprint.
In this little document are contained the plans for recreating my little flintlock there, including the upgrade. I had considerable difficulty making it. It has taken me nearly a decade. But I would give this gift to you, Gearhead, as a mark of our enduring friendship. Now, that hate I mentioned, there is a loose end contained in this very alleyway. I wonder if we might come to an arrangement on that fine point.
And she looks down at Allo. Well, I'm surprised, Mustang. This is not what I expected at all. Let me ask you a quick question.
I'm an open book.
Where's Tok?
He is both near and far, Gearhead. It is a difficult question for one such as me to answer, because Tok understands the realm of physics far more than I do. I believe he could hear you if you were to speak, though I'm afraid he may be beyond your physical grasp, if you take my meaning.
She spins her goggles on her face and begins to look around the alleyway like she's trying to detect someone who might be invisible. Oh, well, in that case, I'll just say, Tok, would you be interested in joining me? We could do great things together.
Okay, Tok is going to use the message cantrip, which I believe doesn't give any information away about either what he's saying to the rest of the party or his location to Gearhead.
Interesting. And she reaches into her dungarees and she pulls out a small metal cube. Be a dear and pass this to Tok, would you? When you see him next.
Vander takes the cube, and at that point, can I do an Arcana check? I want to see if I can see if there's anything about the cube that I can discern. Before I hand some kind of automaton-based virus. 18.
This is an intricately crafted magical unit that recreates the sending spell, similar to a sending stone, but obviously a custom-made one from Gearhead.
Rare artistry, Gearhead. I will be sure to pass it on.
And Vander pockets the item.
Now you make sure that gets to Tok. I'll find out if you don't.
Of course, Gearhead. You must know by now I do sincerely regret any time I have cause to give you grievance.
And she looks at the other two in the alleyway. Oh, I didn't introduce myself, by the way. My name is Greta, or Greta to my friends. You can call me Gearhead. Where's Benny?
I can answer truthfully there, Gearhead. We have no clue.
She appraises you very closely. And after a moment, she lifts the goggles onto the top of her head. Well, I doubt I'll be the last one to ask you that question there, Mustang. Interesting. Well, this is quite the offer. And I have to say, I'd be mad not to say yes. So the question is, how mad am I? Before we come to any kind of agreement here, I do have a little question. Settle a little wager for me, would you? About exactly what it was that brought you back here. We knew you would come home. But the question is, was it because of your father? Because of Morticia? Or was it the fleet?
None of the above, I'm afraid, Gearhead. And, in another sense, all. My primary objective is outside of what you mention, though, of course, it would be a pleasure to engage in any of the 3 other strands you have discussed. You will understand my plans are rarely laid out in such linear fashion, even for one such as myself.
Classic Vander.
Well, that is an interesting answer, isn't it? You know, the Empire has been trying to lure you back here for months, and now we find out it's something else. Fascinating.
Creme de menthe has always been my weakness. The Empire need only have told me of its whereabouts.
Well, Mustang, it seems I'm not quite as mad as everyone might think. It is, after all, a much smaller world. And eventually, people like us always come back into each other's orbits. So I think we have ourselves a deal.
Vander hands over the blueprints, and as he does so,
I trust we will have no further complications with the Blackwater gang while we are frequenting Shale?
You can consider them shadows. You won't hear another thing from us, I promise. Oh, and that reminds me. Poor Allo. He really did try his best, but as we always say, no loose ends. She spins the flintlock around and offers it back to you.
Vander takes the flintlock and conceals it again in his robes.
Wait, wasn't he one of your party? Him on the floor? Wasn't he in your gang?
I'm not sure I'd say that. I'd say he was more of an associate.
He trusted you?
I mean, frankly, he got what he deserved. You can't trust anyone in this world.
What do you think of that, Vander?
I think Allo's regrettable life was marred with poor decision-making.
That's why I like you, Mustang. You're always the villain.
I'm always what I need to be in any given situation.
You'll have to excuse me. I don't know what you are.
Pep says, well, never mind. I don't think I wish to make further acquaintance with you anyway.
Well, that might just be the smartest thing I've heard in this alleyway all evening.
Seeksorrow bends down and touches his fingertips to the neck of the mangled corpse of Allo. He's dead.
I should hope so. I shot him at point-blank range.
Yeah, I saw that.
Well, Gearhead, as always, a rare delight to see you. I must be off now with my little party. A busy evening, or early morning, lies ahead of us.
Of course. It has been a pleasure to see you again. As always.
Good day to you then, Gearhead.
Keep your eye peeled, Mustang. You never know who's lurking in the shadows. And Gearhead rings a little bell and departs the alleyway, accompanied by the giant metal dog. Welcome one and all to Dice Company's Small Embers Chapter 73, where a group of friends weave tales of triumph, heroism and despair under the guise of playing Dungeons & Dragons. My name is Tom and I'll be your DM through the continuing adventures of a party who are haunted by their own past. Party who are haunted by their own past. Please introduce yourselves and tell the audience one fun fact about your characters.
Hi, I'm Alex, and I'm playing Seeksorrow. And Seeksorrow, at various points in his life, has had a list. Until recently, only one name was on his list, and that was the name of Warden Eriksson. The removal of Eriksson from the world meant the removal from the list. But now Seeksorrow is thinking of reinstating the list, adding one and possibly two names to it. The first name on the list is Gearhead, and the second, with a question mark beside it, is Vander Finnick.
Intrigue. Is this a Christmas list?
Quite possibly. Ungamus, I suppose it would be.
That's true, an Ungamus list. Well, I can't wait. Hi, I'm Charlie, and I play Vander Finnick. Vander has misplaced several body parts over the last decade, but he's come to view his dwindling anatomy less as a tragedy and more as a kind of scrapbook of questionable decisions. What interests him isn't the pain, it's how precious others are about keeping their original pieces. Like they expect to leave adventures in mint condition. You can't flirt with death without a little bit of skin in the game. The trick is to have a flexible frame of mind. After all, in the old almshouse, the one-toothed man is king. Now that's wisdom, but true flexibility, that's knowing that you don't have to show up with your own teeth.
Wonder why Vander's on Seeksorrow's list.
Flexibility? He's into people who like flexibility. I don't know.
Hello, I'm Dave, and I play Petron Oakflower. As we all know, Cuthbert is Petron's familiar, but he was not Petron's first familiar. When Petron was first learning the Find Familiar spell, he discovered that it wasn't something that came to him easily. He had to keep trying with it. When he first cast it, he got a squirrel familiar, and that stayed with him for a day. But when he fell asleep and woke up the next morning, the squirrel was gone. The same thing occurred with a rabbit and a vole and a hedgehog. He wasn't choosing the form that these creatures were taking, they just what kind of came out. And then the fifth one that came out was Cuthbert. And Petron assumed that he would also disappear at the close of the day. But he woke up the following morning and Cuthbert was still there. And Cuthbert has been there ever since.
Okay.
Is this a really sly reference to Babylon 5? Are we going to turn out that the rabbit time travelled?
Babylon 5 is a big part of shit.
Get out!
Get out!
It was all a hook for you, Hasbat.
I have not seen Babylon 5, I'm afraid, so I don't. So the answer is no. I think I've shocked Harry.
That might be more cutting than saying it's a pile of shit.
I've got the box set back here. I'll just quickly. Hi, I'm Harry, and I play Tok, an imposing 6'8" automaton. And Tok's fact this week will require some self-assembly. Part 1A. Tok has a keen interest in the energy cycles of the natural world. Part 2A. It has been 4 months since Augustus's death. Part 3A. Tok has assisted Petron in preparing nutritious soups for the crew. Part 2B. The location of Jenny the War Camel is unknown. Part 3B. The rendering cauldron needs a clean. Sadly, any instructions are missing.
We probably say this every week, but that is peak Tok.
Oh,
I
God.
love
You know,
that.
you ever look at some cooking ingredients and think, I don't want to eat what that's proposing? Yeah, I feel that way.
I like the idea that cooking ingredients might be proposing something, like 3 things in the bottom of a shopping bag are looking at you as if to say, hey, throw us together. We could be dinner.
We could be soup.
Is that not how you look at your shopping?
Yeah. Custard, a sponge, and a bag of walnuts.
Going to be imagining different voices for the different types of food now.
Don't forget to check out our companion podcasts, Extra Roll and Around the Campfire, our Discord server, the Dice Cord, the greatest community in all of TTRPGs, our official website, dicecompanypodcast.com, for merchandise, and follow us on Bluesky, TikTok, and YouTube. Links for all of these can be found in the show notes. And please remember, you can cut down the flower, but nothing can stop the coming of spring. So let's turn the page on the next chapter of Dice Company. Previously on Small Embers. The Order of the Heron found themselves in a confrontation with people from their past. Sergeant Allo Clearwater and Captain Hugo Steppenwolf, formerly of the Bounders and now of the Blackwater Gang, posed a perceived threat to Vander and Tok, much to the surprise of their new friends Seeksorrow and Petron. This led to a confrontation with the gnomish builder Gearhead. A deal was struck and a loose end tied up. The party then wandered back in silence to the Shaggy Captain for a disturbed night's sleep. You awaken in the morning and meet downstairs for a subdued breakfast in the near-empty bar area.
Ah, good morning, boys, says Vander, shambling in. I slept like the dead last night.
I didn't sleep well at all, Vander, but I'm delighted to learn that you had a good night's sleep. I have to. Well, I'm going to say it, Vander. Me and Cuthbert have been talking about it. I'm going to say it. I'm surprised that your conscience allows you to sleep that well after what happened last night.
You seem troubled, Petron. Perhaps you need some breakfast.
And Vander signals for the barman.
Was that not a troubling situation to you?
It was a challenging situation, certainly, Petron. One we escaped our lives with. And for that, I am grateful.
It bothers me that you're not more bothered, Vander.
You've got a point, Vander, says Seeksorrow, eating an entire sausage in one bite.
And the barman comes over and puts down 2 plates of eggs, one in front of Vander, one in front of Petron.
Vander mashes one egg into a paste while considering his answer.
You refer, of course, to the rather cavalier way in which I suggested the death of Allo, I assume.
Well, that's right. It was very businesslike, Vander. I imagine that Allo thought himself to be a boon companion to Gearhead, a close associate, someone trusted. And then it turns out he wasn't, was he? He was nothing. Is that how you see people? Is that how you see relationships?
I agree, Petron. Poor Allo,
says Vander, pushing away his plate and leaning back in his chair to consider the deeper question Petron's really asking. Vander opens his robes and produces a case. And from the case, he produces a cheroot. Placing the case on the table, he lights it.
Petron, did I ever mention to you that I was once tortured beyond all endurance?
I think it might have come up.
Well, one of the many little lessons I learned during my little stay with one of the world's most grotesque individuals was that whilst we all cause pain, some of us enjoy it and others do it out of necessity. Now, there is good and evil in this world, Petron, and there are some who enjoy evil. I am one who enjoys necessity. While it may have appeared to you that I was transactional, I was like that because I was in the presence of Gearhead, a gnome of quite extraordinary rage and evil. Were I to have expressed doubt, I would imagine that Gearhead would be less likely to let us leave that little alleyway with our lives. Take this case, for example.
And Vander plays with the case in his hands.
I, until some months ago, was the owner of a fine ivory case, one I treasured. But I lost a close friend, and I wanted to keep something of him with me. This case belonged to a friend of mine you know as Augustus. We keep these little trinkets with us to remind us of what comradeship is, and I am no different to you in that respect. I look after those I care about, Petron, and it may be worth noting that while you may surround yourself with the uncomplicatingly good, you will find at various times in your future that being one of the few friends of a known psychopath such as myself has its little advantages. I promise you, Petron, that there are no lengths I wouldn't go to ensure your safety. And I hope somewhere in there you can find a little comfort, so you may at least choke down your eggs in my nefarious company.
Well, Vander, I'm sorry for your loss of Augustus. And Seeksorrow, I don't know how you feel.
I think you covered it pretty well, Petron. I think the only thing I'd say to you, Vander, and you were brave last night, putting that gun in that gearhead's hand. I don't know, you must know her better than me, but I was sure your blood was going to be flying second after that. But I warn you about this talk of necessity. I think most people's lives are a story, and I don't think even the ones you talk about who enjoy it, I don't think they start there. I think they start with what they have to do. And I think the enjoyment comes by doing that over and over again. The men in my family have done grim things over and over again down the years, and their lives have become grim, and they've become grim. So just watch all the things you do by necessity. I know some of them will be needed, and you handled that very well in the alley, although I'm sorry for that aloe. But yeah, just watch you don't enjoy it, because you might not notice that starting to happen. And even if it did, you'd probably deny it even to yourself.
And those were fine words, and I appreciate them, but one thing I will say, and it doesn't please me to say it, I don't like conflict, but words can be easy. I'll take you at your word, Vander, but I am mindful about how frequently you speak of utility, and when that's tested, if it's more useful to do something other than protect me, or Seeksorrow, or talk, I hope you'll remember these fine words and act on them.
I believe Vander is telling the truth. Vander lies frequently. It is in his nature, like camouflage, because of his weakness. Yet, Vander tortured Aloe on my behalf to ascertain the location of Tick's memories in a stolen memorandum crystal. The Bounders are evil. They killed Tick. The Bounders are a constituent part of the Empire. The Empire is evil. It removed sentience from the people. It must be destroyed. Vander will assist in its destruction, Petron.
Vander's gnarled hand reaches up and scratches behind his mask.
It's been a number of years since someone spoke in my defense. I thank you, Talk.
Well, thank you for that, Talk, and I'll say, Vander, it's to your credit that someone will speak on your behalf in that way, and so on. I've said my piece, haven't I? I wasn't happy about the situation last night. I've spoken about it. I've put it out there. I've said it, and I'm willing to leave it at that.
I understand your concerns, and I have a proposal for you. I do indeed pray to the altar of necessity, but I understand that I speak fine words and rarely back them up with noble action. Perhaps I could do something to remedy the problem. I will ensure that I pay a form of penitence each day where I am able, by spreading joy in the world unbid and unprompted, to assuage your wounded nerves.
Are you going to do a punishment run like at the school?
I will choose the manner of my penitence, but be sure you will know when it arrives.
You see, Seeksorrow looks profoundly disappointed. He was hoping for that.
More than a little skullduggery lurking in your mixed soul, Seeksorrow, I see,
Vander says with a glint.
Well, yeah, probably a lot more than you know, Vander.
I do hope so.
And Vander slurps egg.
Query, Vander. The spreading of joy. Does this work like a virus in humans?
It will be a virus of sheer pleasure, yes, Talk.
Noted.
I'm most irresistibly charming when I choose to be.
More egg is slurped.
Gentlemen, forgive me for reverting to type and focusing on the necessities of the day, but if you will allow it, I would like to visit my father. That, of course, is the means we can use to get to the ring of power we need in order then to continue our plans to fight evil, which I understand is fairly high on your ethical agendas.
Vander, do you intend to use subterfuge in acquiring the ring?
No, Talk. I intend to use fatherly affection.
And Vander just falls into a mirthless laughter.
I don't know much about philosophy, Vander, but I did, as I've mentioned, spend a morning as a philosophy teacher. And during that time, all I could really do was regurgitate a bunch of stuff that I heard from the only philosopher I ever met. And I remember one of his things was that to understand all is to forgive all. So I think if we go meet your dad, if we understand him, I imagine we'll be much more forgiving towards you. I bet he's a right old bastard, is he?
I believe he will test your philosophy.
Well, I look forward to that, Vander.
What a definitive morning you had some years ago, Seeksorrow.
Yeah, well, it was quite, I had to show him how to go out through the window, really, but I didn't want to push my luck. I had a good time, though, good time.
Speaking of playing parts, if we are to get a favourable audience, we must dress to impress, boys. I suggest we visit the nearest tailors so we may present ourselves as nobility.
You see Petron put on a slightly quizzical face. I'm not sure I can pass for nobility, whatever I might be wearing.
I can provide human skin-coloured paint, Petron.
Right.
Clearly, Petron, you have not brushed shoulders with the great and the good. There are plenty of barely humanoid shapes that drape themselves in fineries and talk a good game, wandering about in high society at any time of day.
I suppose if you think it'll work, all right then.
Yeah, come on, Petron, we can dress up. It sounds like fun. It sounds like an adventure. Although, Vander, you're not going to murder your old dad, are you? I mean, me and Petron are definitely going off solo in your ship if you do.
Of course not, Seeksorrow. I am predisposed to be most...
And Vander just stops mid-sentence.
Positive words no longer exist in Vander's head.
Yeah.
Let us not soil ourselves with further lies. I suggest we go to the tailors.
God, that soil yourself with lies should be across the Vander family gates as we go in.
Hashtag stay soiled.
With breakfast finished, Vander leads you all through Shale to the high-end fashion retailers, Batistutas.
Oh, I thought Batistutas was a one-off. I didn't know it was a branch. It's slightly gone down in my estimation.
Take that back.
It's a franchise model, you know.
Say Batistutas est Denothlia.
Yeah. It's just, we didn't think Augustus would shop in a chain store.
Augustus only shopped in the original Batistutas in the heart of Gothamer.
Everyone, please remove 150 gold coins from your inventory and describe the fine clothing you bought. And when deciding, please remember that the Highmore official colour is yellow.
Toc just wants camouflage, so he's just going to buy a tarp. I guess a yellow tarp.
Are we sponsored by Big Tarp? Because tarpaulins feature in this show about once every 2 episodes. Oh, I know. We need something. Let's just get touched by a tarp.
So I really want anyone who's listened to Loads of Dice Company, I want them to go, fuck me, I want a tarp. I don't know why. They're
going to show up to our first ever live show wearing tarp.
In the original Session Zero for this, we didn't say anything about the characters. It was just step 1. Buy shares in a tarpaulin company. Step 2, really complicated long-term podcast operation.
This bizarre idea that we would come up with that through D&D. We're like, what's the Venn diagram? People who will buy tarps will probably listen to D&D.
We've got to seed in the idea of tarps at every opportunity.
It's a nearly 1-to-1 crossover.
Would you like to describe what the fine clothing is you have bought for your characters?
A large yellow tarp.
Vander emerges in imperial yellow, known as imperial saffron, which is his house colours. He has flowing robes and a jauntily placed hat with a feather kind of wafting in the wind.
Petron comes out wearing a forest green cloak with yellow trim to satisfy Vander's requirements. His stoop is more pronounced than ever, and he appears to be trying to blend into the background, despite the fact that there is no forest green in the background.
Does he have a hat?
Yes, with a yellow feather.
Ooh, yes!
Seeksorrow emerges in a sky blue suit with bright yellow pinstripes, a bright yellow waistcoat and tie, a bowler hat with a yellow band, and shiny, shiny shoes. He's only ever worn a funeral suit in his previous suit-wearing experience, which, as you remember, he wore on his morning as a schoolteacher. So this is the first time he's worn a suit that was meant to draw the eye, and oh my god, it draws the eye.
Petron leans into Vander and says, Vander, how are you meant to behave around nobility? I need three top tips. That's all I need. Not too much. I can't be too complicated because I'll forget. I get flustered and I'll forget. But give me 3 things to keep in mind.
You only need one, Petron.
Oh, that's a relief.
You may feel any emotion you wish, as long as it is underlaid with disdain.
I am informed, Petron, that the nobility can feel sadness, like the common man.
Very true talk, very true indeed. And boys, you all look the part. Though Seeksorrow, I'm surprised Batistutors would put their name to what you have chosen.
Well, the guy did cry a little bit. Vander, do I need to be a character? Because I don't think a Seeksorrow would wear this. Could I be Sir Hugo Pomplemoose?
There is no need for subterfuge whilst meeting my father, though of course you may be whoever you wish to be, as your background will not be the centre of discussion.
All right, well, I might blurt that out then if I get a chance.
Of course, Seeksorrow, we must all adventure in our own way.
Wonderful!
So Vander, the disdain. I can have whatever emotion I want, but I have to have some disdain. So would it be something like saying, oh, I don't know. Oh, thank you, Vander. That's a wonderful idea. If you like stupid ideas.
Vander just looks slightly disconcerted.
Petron, yours will be a non-speaking role. But I thank you for your efforts. Much to learn, much to learn.
And quickly turns away.
Right you are. I thought I nailed it.
Absolutely did.
A hand reaches out of the cloak, and there's a small vial in it, and it's like shaken like a thing to flick some of the liquid within onto their clothes. Tok is using his chemical analysis of the humans' pheromones to make them smell like Vander, because Vander's a noble, and the humans' pheromones must mean that will instill the noble class into them in the same ways with ants or bees. So, yeah, that's the way he's going to try and guide them in their disguise as a human noble.
Oh, God, Tok, what is that fucking awful smell?
I am unaware, Seeksorrow. I do not perceive odors as a human.
Well, you're lucky, I'd say.
Whatever do you mean, Seeksorrow? You smell as clean as a whistle.
Seeksorrow doesn't want to spoil his happy jaunt through the streets.
Walking along the cobbled streets like a pack of pound shop pimps and smelling like chamber pots. You reach the noble quarter of Shale. The mood is, frankly, hungover. The few people you do see are either still drunk or look like they wish they were anywhere else other than upright and out. You approach a rusted iron gate which creaks open before you. Beyond it, the Highmore estate rises like a forgotten chapter, tall, grey-stoned, and grimly dignified. Ivy clings to its walls, and the windows, though clear, have smudges of grime which prevent viewing inside. The grounds at the front are immaculate, but joyless. Grass is trimmed to a soldier's length, hedges obediently boxy, the flower beds featureless and bland. Even the gravel underfoot seems like it could have been swept into perfect rows. Vander, you step up to the front door, which has a long rope outside, attached to a bell.
It has been some time since I last spoke with my father, boys, and he may be surprised to see me alive. Do prepare yourself for whatever comes next.
Vander, would you like me to remain within the cloak to prepare for possible combat?
I see combat as unlikely, but I think being obscured is a benefit, as we do not wish to shock the old man any more than is necessary, Tok.
Tok and his giant yellow tarp will remain in the cloak.
And Vander's gnarled hand reaches out to pull the chain.
Does it flush?
And the door slowly creaks open, and you are met with a tiny, ancient-looking housekeeper. Vander, you recognize this housekeeper as Gwendolyn. She must be in her 90s. She's attempted to put lipstick on, but it's all over her face in a mess. She has very thin hair that kind of points out in all directions, and she's not a million miles away from looking like a corpse. Her eyes seem to be going in different directions, and she only has about 6 teeth in her mouth, all of them rotten.
Vander throws his arms wide.
Nanny!
Who's that then?
It's your long-lost Cyril.
Don't be ridiculous, Cyril's dead.
I'm afraid he's very much alive and overjoyed to see you again, Nanny.
You're trying to pull a fast one on me, aren't you? You ain't getting one over on Gwendolyn. Are you here to see the master?
I most certainly am, and were I not the Cyril you remember, then how would I know you keep your finest brandy beneath the sink in the scullery maid's room?
Who you been talking to? No one knows that.
And she kind of squints, and her eyes are going in both directions, and she leans in close. Sniffs you.
No, you're not Cyril. What name shall I give for the master?
Now you mention it, it might be best to give the name Vander.
Vander. Come in, Vander.
She opens the door and shows you through to the living room.
As they walk through, Seeksorrow mutters to Petron, "I've buried healthier people than that."
She was a beauty in her day,
says Vander over his shoulder.
Bet you were too, Vander, eh?
Vander points his cane at a shabby image on the wall. I'm hopefully going to find an image of me or a portrait in the main hall as a young man.
Actually, as you cross the threshold, the air is cool, and on the walls are a series of portraits that show the Highmore family throughout the ages, starting with the most recent, a very handsome young man who bears more than a passing resemblance to Vander Finnick.
Vander, now that we know your likeness, you may use a spell to aid in the deception.
An interesting idea, Tok. But I believe I will need a conversation with my father in a more candid setting. Though, Seeksorrow, you may feast your eyes on the devilishly handsome young man I once was.
And so Seeksorrow does that. He stops right in front of that picture and goes, "Bloody hell, Vander, is that really you?"
Vander sweeps the fading hair he's got over the bald patches on his head.
Why, yes, Seeksorrow. And it still is.
Well, fair enough. I'm beginning to see why you're such a bastard. And he claps Vander on the shoulder again and goes, "Come on then."
You feel an uncommon arrangement of bones.
And then Seeksorrow winks at Vander and says, "I've buried healthier people than that too."
You'll find, Seeksorrow, that I will never be buried. Not in this or the next life.
As you head along the corridor, the portraits go in order, and Seeksorrow, actually, having paid attention to the one that showed a young Cyril Highmore, you then see one of an older man, far more dour, with the name Cedric Highmore below it. And then the next one along is a kind of bushy beard mountain of a man with the name Lord Hamish Highmore. Then Lady Suella Highmore. And finally, the most ridiculously over-the-top nobleman you've ever seen, corpulent, red-faced, with the name Grand Lord Radagard Highmore. You then enter into the living room. The place is meticulous and clean, and there are huge leather sofas for you to sit on while you wait.
Impressive, is it not?
Certainly is, Vander. You come from a long line of fancy folk, I can see.
My personal favourite ancestor was Publius Highmore, though his exploits will not be recorded on the walls of this house. A little too checkered in his approach to the tasks in hand, but more than a little to admire in that life.
And Petron sits down on one of the sofas, but just right on the very edge of it. So he's barely touching the seat. He looks incredibly uncomfortable to be there.
Vander, you notice the door on the northern part of the room, the door which used to lead to your bedroom. It is currently closed, but looks exactly the same as you remember it.
That does take Vander back, and you see his eye fall on the door, and his expression go from the usual jocular, interested one to something more far away and thoughtful for a second.
What's in there, Vander?
The past, Seeksorrow. I wonder.
And Vander listens. I'm listening for footsteps. I'm trying to work out if I've got any time before the arrival of my father.
Gwendolyn has disappeared upstairs. You know the layout of the house. She's probably going to be gone at least 5 minutes at the rate that she was shuffling out of the room.
Big house, slow zombie.
Housemaid.
Nanny.
Infectious.
As if drawn by something imperceptible, Vander rises and shuffles towards his old room, slowly reaching out a hand, as if lost in a memory. His hand closes on the door, and he pulls it slowly open.
And inside, Vander, you find a room that is exactly the same as the last time you were there. Like a shrine to your former life. A golden clock ticks loudly on the wall. There is a bookcase that is half empty, but the bed is neatly made. On the windowsill is a large tooth on a display stand, and drawing your eye in a shadowy corner, covered in a dust sheet, is a figure, like the world's worst hide-and-seeker.
So many years, imagining my taking my place as a member of nobility in Shale. Of course, none was to be.
Vander says, looking around. He is also looking for a small wooden horse, if it's anywhere on the shelves.
You can see no sign of it in the room. There is, however, a cupboard.
Vander eyes the cupboard, noting that he'll return to that shortly, but approaches the other object in the room, shrouded, to see what's under the sheet.
You pull back the sheet, and stood motionless is a 5'8" automaton. Incredibly basic design with a series of turnable keys at various joints, like a wind-up toy rather than a modern, sentient automaton like Tok. It is holding a broken sewing machine in its hands, and its head is tilted sharply to one side with obvious damage around its neck, which matches the damage of the sewing machine.
Runcible,
says Vander, his eyes wide with a kind of joy never seen on Vander's face.
He kept you all these years. I had assumed you were lost.
Who's this, Vander?
A very old friend, Petron. A childhood playmate and a caregiver of sorts. I give you Runcible.
And Vander's hand shoots out in a kind of huge reveal that you may not feel any grandeur to.
Above Vander's shoulder, you see a little, bent pipe emerge from the top of the cloak.
Tok, I appreciate it is early in the day for thievery, but if it is possible, might you be able to conceal Runcible?
That would be acceptable, Vander.
Allow me to quickly check this cupboard just in case there is anything of value in there.
And Vander opens the cupboard as well.
And the cupboard is empty.
Tok and Tick will emerge from the cloak, will unceremoniously pick up Runcible sort of sideways, one with the head, one with the feet, and then just walk straight back into Vander's cloak whilst he's wearing it.
Even for me, that was somewhat perturbing.
Vander closes the cupboard, looking slightly disappointed at not finding whatever he was looking for.
Well, I suggest we resume our places and wander back out of Memory Lane. It doesn't do to dwell in these places too long.
Where have you gone? The Lord's ready for you now.
Of course.
And you hear the click of Vander's cane as he makes his way in the direction of Nanny.
Follow me.
Yep, Petron trots along behind Vander.
Yeah, and Seeksorrow.
And she leads you up the stairs towards the grand dining hall. guys follow Gwendolyn up to the grand double doors of the dining room. With great effort, she turns the handle and pushes the doors open. Inside you find an impeccably clean dining room. Austere, beautiful, but slightly aged. The carpets are threadbare. Some of the large draped curtains have tatty holes in it caused by moths. And sat in a single chair on a raised platform at the far end of the room is a very austere man, dressed impeccably, with black hair swept to the side neatly, a long, protruding nose and pale face. You recognize him from the portrait downstairs. Vander, you recognize your father.
Vander steps slowly into the room.
My thank you for receiving us, Lord.
He looks up, and you notice, Vander, that he is currently playing with a small rocking horse toy that he rocks back and forward on the arm of the chair.
Vander's eye narrows.
It is good to see you, Father.
You are no son of mine. My son died 12 years ago.
I had considered you might take that line, Father, but I must debate the point.
Says Vander, his cane striking as he makes his way slowly round the table.
Blood is an ever-present tie, I am afraid, so as disgusted as you may be by my current visage, I am still your son.
You look ridiculous, as does your entourage.
Not impressed by our house colours and show of unity, Father? How unpredictably cold of you.
Seeksorrow holds out his arms to show the suit more, because he assumes the guy hasn't seen him properly, if he doesn't think this is a really good get-up.
Coldly, Cedric Highmore looks away from Seeksorrow back to Vander. Whatever this thing is that stands before me now is wearing my son's face, and I don't appreciate it.
But you never appreciated me growing up either, Father, so how is a son to tell the difference?
And Vander pulls a chair up and then slouches into it, his cane languishing by his heel.
Feel free to take a seat.
Forgive a indulgence on the part of the broken,
says Vander, genuflecting comically.
If you were my son, I'm tired of bending over backwards to make your life easy.
Does my life appear easy to you, Father?
My son was gifted everything he could have ever wanted, and he squandered it. My son was a stupid idiot who got himself captured and killed.
Your son was many things, but stupid, never. I rather remember him as someone who died heroically in order to forward the beliefs of this great house, though of course I use the term in the past tense,
Vander says, eyeing the surroundings, dilapidating as they are.
And your stupidity comes to the fore again. You look around here and see former glory. Well, I'm afraid, whoever you are mistaken. There is still power in this place.
And what power is that you speak of, Father?
Says Vander, dribbling the last word out with particular relish.
I have already frequented the docks and see you are no longer the head of an impressive naval fleet. My guess is that it lies at the bottom of the harbour.
You have been here 1 minute and you have been wrong 3 times already.
I'm just warming up.
Petron at this point nudges Seeksorrow in the ribs and just says, disdain.
Seeksorrow gives an enthusiastic nod at that.
I see you have surrounded yourself with fools and nincompoops.
Excuse me?
Seeksorrow bows, not knowing what nincompoop means.
I have surrounded myself with utility, but thank you for the observation.
I don't appreciate that. I think you've not met us before, and I think that's a very presumptuous thing to say. No, I'd thank you to withdraw that comment.
He raises an eyebrow at you.
Petron's getting slightly riled up on both his own, but also surprisingly, perhaps to himself, on Vander's behalf too.
I would recommend you keep your dog on his leash.
Noble words, patron, but I feel they may be falling on deaf ears. How is your hearing, Father? You look terribly aged.
I'll be damned if I'm going to sit here and take lessons on what I look like from whatever creature this is sat before me.
I have learned it is very important to feel comfortable in one's own skin,
Vander says with a grotesque wriggle.
Speaking of lessons, Father, I am here to address a historical matter with you.
I know why you are here. You are here for the ring, obviously.
I prefer to refer to it as my birthright,
Vander says, twirling his cane.
Wrong for the fourth time. It would have been my son's birthright, had he not died 12 years ago, playing the fool. But I'm afraid the ring is no longer in my possession.
Have you abandoned your wits as well as your looks, Father? That ring is important to the family and has been passed from father to son, generation following generation. Are you really going to break the chain?
I do not need lessons in the lineage of my family. When I die, the family estate and everything in it, will go back to the city. Shale is the Highmore seat of power, and as I have no children, tradition dictates it will go back to the bank, which is where the ring currently resides.
The Dark Bank?
Says Vander, looking up.
The only bank, of course.
How incredibly safe. And what gift to the city will you bestow beyond this mansion of ill repute and the ring, Father? Are you referring to your dwindling wealth also?
My wealth is my business, and it is gauche to discuss things over the dinner table, especially with two strangers.
Forgive me, Father. My travels have made me rather coarse, I'm afraid. Worldly experience often comes at a cost.
If I were to discuss it, whoever you are, I would tell you that it has already been reinvested in the rebirth of Shale, in a new fleet, one for which the city and the family Highmore will be proud.
Oh dear. Sadly, you have clearly lost your mind. Father, must I tell you again that the harbour stands empty? Have you truly bartered away your remaining wealth on a fictitious fleet?
It is not fictitious, and it is not naval. Technology and society have moved forward, you blithering idiot. And you will find Shale has moved with the times. For the first time ever, Shale has an air fleet.
Vander pauses at that.
He gets a message from Tok in his ear saying, Vander, we should take the air fleet.
What an interesting investment, Father. And where, if you don't mind a stranger asking, are you basing this air fleet?
All of you can see that this austere man suddenly looks very uncomfortable, like he's allowed his emotions to get the better of him and revealed a little bit too much in conversation. At asking the question, his eyes look very quickly out of the window towards Mourner's Keep, and then he looks back to the rocking horse, which he slowly rocks back and forth. I'm not here to discuss the air fleet. I'm here to discuss what you feel is owed to you. I cannot give you the ring, for the ring is in the Dark Bank, where it will remain. As you are aware, no one has ever got into the Dark Bank and got out alive. So, I offer you this, to leave this premises and never return. And he takes the rocking horse and slides it across the table slowly towards you.
You are correct, Father, that I have some small requests, but I am practical, which is why I will not negotiate for the impossible, such as a father's love for his long-lost son. Your gesture of a small wooden horse is most entertaining, and I thank you for this opening offer. One question, though, before we continue this delightful exchange.
Ask.
I remember the fleet was run by a commander, the Sea Marshal, if my memory serves.
Your knowledge of Shale is correct?
That would mean that you need a new commander for the air fleet, and if tradition is upheld, they would be called the Sky Marshal.
That is none of your concern.
But where, Father, to find someone with the experience to lead an aerial assault of the nature that I am sure you are contemplating? Such a captain would be so very difficult to find, I'm sure.
Bardle.
Were we to need a Sky Marshal, there are plenty of names already available to me, most notably Nori Gosler.
What a creative approach to leadership you have, Father. I am truly gratified to hear you can still remember names of people you've met, and I am of a mind to put my own name forward as an experienced admiral.
And what name would that be?
Why, Vander Finnick, of course. I wouldn't sully the family reputation with my old name.
My son's name is Cyril Highmore. You are Vander Finnick. Ergo, you are not my son.
We can both agree that Cyril is dead, yes. But where we disagree is what you owe your acquaintance, Vander.
I will have to continue to disagree. Fortunately, your opinion means nothing to me. But I will offer you some advice. Be careful who you put your trust in. Do not go around town bleating about the fantasy of who you really are. And a warning to one of your entourage. And he turns to face Petron. I wouldn't waste your time with this pretender. If I were you, my focus would be on misery. Anyway, this meeting is over. Please escort yourselves off of my property. And do not darken my door again.
Well, Father, it seems we have continued the chasm-like rift in our broken relationship, undeterred by the passage of time. It was a rare pleasure to see you again, and I am pleased to leave this place with a small wooden horse.
This conversation is over.
Petron takes a step forward and loses the stoop for a moment, just to let Mr. Highmore know just quite how looming he can be when he chooses. And he says, I'm not that good at expressing disdain in the way that you and Vander are. You've got a real capacity for it, but I'd like you to know that I do feel it towards you quite strongly. And with that, he turns on his heel and has a go at trying to sweep out with his new cloak.
Give me a performance check.
Yeah, I knew that. That is an 8.
In your attempts to leave with a flourish, you turn and the cape, the forest green cape that you're wearing, gets caught on the corner of one of the chairs at the table, and as you step forward it pulls tight and you feel it partially throttle you before you're able to kind of loosen it, stand up straight again, and then hobble out, having lost all confidence in yourself.
But as Petron leaves, he pokes his head back round the door and goes, my point stands, and then goes out again.
Seeksorrow raises his bowler hat because he's never had the opportunity to raise a hat in a scornful way before and says, "Good day, sir." And he's going to attempt to flounce out as well.
Performance check.
That's 19.
Wow. Better be some good flouncing.
You are incredibly effective at mirroring exactly what a noble person behaves like as you stroll confidently out of the dining room, and even Mr. Highmore raises an eyebrow just momentarily at your behaviour.
The cut of Seeksorrow's jib there.
Truly, you are unchanged in your outlook on life. What a pleasure it is to see such consistency in the family. I wish you joy of the evolutionary cul-de-sac you have created for yourself. I don't suppose we will meet again in this life.
And Vander stands.
Well, things to do, Father. A city to reacquaint myself with, and a whole new line of family deeds to commit under the name Finnick.
Get out.
With pleasure.
And Vander shambles out, closing the door as he leaves.
Mr. Highmore hears a crash and a tinkle from outside as Seeksorrow knocks over a vase.
It was a fake. Boys, gather in. Well, that meeting was as unfortunate as expected. I now have the horse of my childhood, a personal victory, and Vander stores that in his robes. I have a new goal, in that I will one day be the Sky Marshal of Shale. And perhaps more importantly, boys, we have a heist to arrange. We need the ring, and the Dark Bank is, rather worryingly, in the way. What say you to a drink and some devilish plotting?
On game, Vander. Sounds great to me.
I would find that to be acceptable.
I certainly think I need a drink after that. I felt very tense. Vander, are you alright?
Quite perfectly fine, thank you, Petron. When your father is such an immutable bastard as mine has always been, you develop an armor to it. But your words are music to my ear, boys. Alcohol and skullduggery ahead, I feel. This feels like an adventure. Let us be off. This place is depressing.
And then Vander begins shambling in the direction of the door.
And we will end it there.
Bye, Nanny!
Bye!
Fun.
You've been listening to Dice Company's Small Embers, starring Dave Windust as Petron Oakflower, Alex Morrison as Seeksorrow, Charlie Blackadder as Vander Finnick, and Harry King as Talk, with Tom Patrick as your Dungeon Master.
The humans of Dice Company would like to thank the following sweethearts for their support: Zeus Legion, Zero Nova, Sepulchre Stennet, Marky B, Jenny the War Camel, Stephen Sikora, Nori Gosler, Mickey Arnold, Happy Daddy Scotty, Tika, SJ Phionics, Richard Ungamus, Rabbi Camel, Team Stay Toxic, Path Pursuit, Paris Pakar, Liz Beckett, Julia Zeno, Shovels, Queenie, and a special extra thanks to our very own Council of Rojan, Mama Strange, Axel Runholm, and Chris from North London.
Oh, hello there. And rip you apart. I fucking hate this accent.
Since it's right in front of me.
You talk just WhatsApp Gearhead.
Look, Artificers can invent whatever they want.
What I am right now,
Sorry.
Gearhead.
Sorry, she was talking to Petron.
Ah,
She knows what you are.
I was about to say what I am right now is gone. I was going to be...
Please note that I haven't told you what the list is for. It may not be quite what you think.
Should I be saying et tu, Seeksorrow?
Say whatever you want. The axe is swinging towards your face. What an entourage Vander is bringing home. What is Daddy going to think of this?
Not a lot.
A wonderful idea if you like stupid ideas is my favourite line in the history of this show.
Well, it made me cry for the second time, this time through laughter, so... Impressive work.
I had actually pre-written a defence of Vander quite a while ago, and so had something to draw upon.
You assumed I'd find myself in court.
I knew he'd need it.
Was this adventure number 2?
It was quite early on.
lore.
Thanks for listening. Please consider supporting Dice Company on Patreon, where for the price of a cup of coffee you get access to a whole other show, Extra Roll, as well as an ad-free listening experience. The Dice Company Discord server, along with our socials, can be found on our link tree in the show notes. If you enjoyed this chapter, please like and subscribe, and don't forget to recommend us to your friends. If you didn't like it, recommend us to your enemies. And we'll see you next time on Dice Company.